It's 5 minutes with me.
I am not convinced there's an actual increase in gay teenagers or those wrestling with same-sex attraction in the average church, but there is no question that youth workers all over the globe, whatever your church's theology or your own, are facing an exponential increase in questions from all fronts. Every one of my youth worker coaching groups, participants of all theological stripes, want to talk about how they should respond to teenagers with same-sex attraction questions and transgender questions. Almost every youth worker is asking, or should be asking, pragmatic questions. Almost every youth worker is being expected to give answers to teenagers, parents, and oversight committees. And I found that most of us don't know how to talk about these issues. One of the results is an interesting one. We almost always default to theological camps, even the large quantity of youth workers who aren't sure what their theological camp is. Conversations quickly become debates. Now, there's a place for debates, for sure. Biblical and theological understanding is critical, but at the end of the day, I'm finding that most youth workers are wrestling with questions and situations that are more pastoral than theological. And I'm not seeing enough of these conversations. To paraphrase pastor and author Andy Stanley, with Jesus, we see that theology is never allowed to trump ministry. A few years back, I was reading the manuscript of a wonderful book by Andrew Marin called Us versus Us, The Untold Story of Religion and the LGBTQ Community. The book reveals the findings and practical implications of a massive research study done of the faith of LGBTQ people. And there are some very surprising findings, one of which should result in direct action from youth workers everywhere. In short, one surprising finding of the study was that LGBTQ people score more than 10% higher than the general population when it comes to having a background in the Christian church. That fact is fascinating for sure and worthy of reflection, but the research team dug deep into the data, referencing reams of data from other questions and digging into the responses from open-ended prompts. They discovered this. A large portion of young teens, they specifically called out middle schoolers, who are experiencing same-sex attraction, look for ways to rid themselves of the attraction that they don't desire to have. Prior to their young teen years, survey respondents may have been aware of their SSA, but the questions and often pain and fear surrounding these issues become particularly urgent to young teens stepping into the developmentally normative work of identity formation. Now, here's the news for youth workers and churches in general. A statistically significant percentage of young teens experiencing SSA but without prior church experience turn to the church as a means of turning to God. Did you catch that? Young teens without prior church experience start attending church and our youth group programs specifically because of their same-sex attraction. They're looking primarily for answers and help, and often hoping that God will remove their same-sex attraction. Sadly, the statistics also show that the vast majority of teens experiencing SSA do not find help in the church, all too often experiencing condemnation and rejection. And the majority of LGBTQ adults report leaving the church but not their faith during their later teen years. Teenagers are in our midst looking for help, and we have been for a very, very long time failing them. This is one of the reasons I am so firmly in agreement with Andy Stanley's insistence that the church should be the safest place to talk about anything, including same-sex attraction. This podcast is not the place for a deep dive into all the ways we youth workers should be living out this safest place to talk about anything mandate. But let's at least start here. Love and dialogue and create safety and prayerfully work out your pastoral response more urgently than your theological posture to the teenagers in your very midst who are wrestling with these questions.
The Youth Cartel Podcast Network.